We have an article that I thought was a great health and fitness headline, especially as we're talking about the Olympics getting started. This is a huge time in our world where we come together and we watch the best athletes from swimming to basketball to all the things. They come together and obviously go America, go USA. But Olympics are starting. So let's just talk about maybe some sports performance training or how Olympians might train versus how we might train at Burn Boot Camp. I thought that might be an interesting conversation to have. And you know what? Let's go to the real athletes in the building. We'll go to easy, Bryce. Okay, easy. We'll go to Dylan first. We'll go to Dylan first. We'll go to Bryce second and Morgan.
Well, I think we want to recap the article, right?
Well, yeah, we're gonna recap the article. So Bryce, you want to do that? Recap the article, and then we'll start with Dylan's take.
Yeah, so we just have a quick article here from Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, and it's really a pretty quick summary. And they define training versus fitness as training is you're working towards a specific goal, right? So the activity that you're doing in your training is reverse engineering. Here's what you're going to need to do in your sport. So here's the program that we're going to do to set you up to do this more efficiently. From a fitness standpoint, it just says, hey, this is a program that is helping people be more healthy, more functional, just for what may come up throughout their life, right? So it's kind of targeting multiple activities and whatever's important in their life. So it's just ranging from specific for this thing that you're actually looking to grow in and perform in to, hey, I want to feel good, I want to look good, I want to be sharp, whatever your goals are, but it can be set you up to be more successful in a wide ranging, level of activities throughout your life.
Yeah. And I mean, I would go ahead and say that the, sport performance is something that, three of us up here have been in, right? And so, it's really cool to see the effort and the work that you put in have an end result. And obviously I can speak to swimming. Sport performance was not just being in a pool swimming laps, going up and down, but you're running, you're lifting weights. A lot of what we do at Burn is the cross training that goes into a lot of the sport performance, but you're just adding on that sport specific exercise, right? So for swimming, it would be 5-6 days a week of in the water, hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours a session. And then, you have 3 sessions of weightlifting, right? And so you're trying to get strong because, strength for sprinters versus distance swimmers are going to be, is going to be a little bit different. So, sprinters are going to be in the weight room 3 or 4 days a week, where your sprinters are going to be in 1 to 2. And so it's very not just sport specific, but distance specific. And it's really cool to see it all kind of come together where, you've got these athletes that are really, taking 3-4 years of their time to then have it really come down to, for these sprinters, it's less than 30 seconds that they're in the water. And so, the sport specific and sport performance side, again, you got specialists, right? You're getting really specialized in your diet, your nutrition, your weight room routines. Obviously you have your swim coaches that are there, to push and develop you, as you're going through your training cycles. But yeah, it's crazy to see that, all of this hard work that these men and women are going through comes down to, you look at track as kind of the same way, right? Yeah. It's like, these 100-meter sprinters, it's 12 seconds, 10 seconds, 9 seconds that they're actually racing after 4 years of work. Mm-hmm. And again, you've got to be specialized, right? You've got to be, super specific in your work to be able to then translate that over to, to the sport that you're in. Baseball is going to be a little bit different because you've got a season that you're training for, it's just really cool to see, it all come to fruition for these, athletes. They put in a lot of work.
I wish I would have known you in that era. Now I know you just crush a couple golf course hot dogs and go bomb a 300-yard drive and beat me by 15 strokes. I'd love to see the regimented, just, I'm doing this for my 12 seconds in the pool, and
dude, I tell you what, it's nerve wracking, right? But, you also think about like the time and effort, you're like, hey, you got confidence, right? I put in the work, I did the reps, I did the miles, you know, yeah, I mean, I would really say that, you know, obviously from the exercise perspective, is one thing, right? You know, again, you're specialized in those, but you know, that diet and nutrition, you know, plays such a huge role for these athletes.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, I think what you touched on was just how specific are we getting, right? Because I would come home for an off season, or even really during the season too. The San Diego Padres, when I played baseball, they would have a workout for us, but really where you were making the strides and getting better, stronger, faster, whatever you're working on doing is in the off season when you're not playing, right? You have a little bit more capacity to, you know, break your muscles down, build them back up, because you're also not mixing in the stress of the season. And it would be get home, you would work with somebody who would say, okay, how'd the season go? How'd you do? What went well? How'd you feel? They'd put you through physical screenings to say, hey, here's where your flexibility's at. They would take into account the position, not even just the sport that you play, but the position that you play as a pitcher. It's somewhat, I mean, DK, would you say that's probably one of the most specialized positions, just because it's like one joint?
Yeah, like a quick example
joints,
is like
really.
we never bench pressed.
Yeah.
That was not a part, like that's just one example
Yeah.
of how specialization, periodization, all that hyper specific stuff,
It's-
you know,
there's-
it's like you just never bench press because that has nothing to do with throwing a ball fast.
And it would be, so I'm sure there's a lot of specialized, I'm sure there's people listening like, hey, this took a lot of specialization, but what I mean is the shoulder, the elbow gets a lot of special attention of what kind of stress can we put this into? Does doing this thing actually help you do your sport better? And bench press was one of those things that for a long time, it's, hey, the risk reward of doing this versus what you're going to get out of it doesn't make sense. So then they would actually put a program together that said, okay, you're looking to throw the ball harder. You're also looking to feel better throughout the whole season. And now I'm going to choose exercises throughout the entire 6 months off season that fit these goals, your position and what your physical makeup is, even going down to, are you pretty tight? Like, can you touch your toes, or are you hypermobile? What's your range of motion in your shoulder? And do we need to work on flexibility? Are you pretty good? We don't have to work on flexibility that much.
Well, and you look at the physique of the athletes too, right? You look at a swimmer, right? They have the classic V, right? They're big on their chest and lats, and you know their waistline is super trim because they, you know, focus a lot on building up those lat muscles, because that's every stroke in swimming. You have to have, you know, that capacity and strength in those muscles to be good and to be fast. You know, so I think about, you know, track athletes and cyclists, right? All of them have massive quads, right? And calves, because that's what they need to be strong in to be good at their sport, right?
Yeah. Would you like me
I
to,
was just
would you like
curious,
my
when
take on
Devan
this?
when Devan says that you were a lower half athlete, did you specialize with a trainer that was like, hey, we're only doing legs, Morgan. I do not want to
No.
see you curl, shoulder press, or anything like that. We're only doing legs. And you were just the best lower half athlete.
I think I'm a lower half athlete, meaning what he means by that, if you're listening, is I'm not a good shooter in basketball because
You're not bad.
I'm not
You're just really good at kicking a soccer
So
ball. So in
I-
contrast,
I
it's
think
fast.
ultimately, if I were to nail it down to one thing, I'm just short. I'm 5'2". And no, listen, like my dad, I got my dad's
I know slow,
stature.
short people.
Yeah, no, but I got my dad's stature, and he was also short, and he had very muscular legs, and he was fast. So I think that's what I got from him. And so I was really good at track. And then obviously I chose soccer over track, so it was conflicting seasons. I was a good defender in basketball. I was good at
boxing people out.
I was good at
Yeah.
volleyball for a little bit, but then I gave that up to play more soccer. So I think just because I am short, and I would just use what I had to my advantage, which was my speed and my aggressiveness.
So I would like to just take a moment to put in reference like where burn is versus what we're talking about. So we're, you know, these swimmers, even basketball players, even archery, like there is a period and a specialization that is involved with something that's so sports specific. And so let's take the range. Okay. So if I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw in the air. If you can see, I'll try to use my words well so that you can visualize this if you're not watching. But I'm drawing a scale, okay? And on one side of the scale is over here. And this might be a program like something like Les Mills or Zumba or something that is group instructor led, highly not personalized, highly not specialized, and no periods. It's a workout that's programmed in a silo, and then people show up and they do the workout, and there's no push, it's great for certain purposes, but that's what it is. It is that side, it's that spectrum. That's like the Les Mills type class-based stuff you might see at a box gym. Okay, so then the other side is what Dylan and Bryce are talking about. This is one-on-one sports performance specific, hyper specific training that requires you to have that specialized attention. You don't do that in a group. You don't do that in a class. It's one-on-one. You're working with your trainer for your sport, working to get better at your times or your outcome. Okay, so then in the middle, okay, let's go in the middle now. All right, so if Les Mills is on this side, then about the next one over is something like an Orange Theory Fitness or an F45 where there's screens and you have people in the building, but the screens are your modality. So you're starting to get more specialized. There is somebody there that could help you out should they choose to in that day. And then, okay, let's go right in the middle on the spectrum. That's CrossFit. To me, CrossFit's right in the middle. There's a workout of the day. You're trying to get better at the workouts that you've done. You're repeating workouts. You're trying to get better at them. So there's some period to that. There's some specialization to that. You're starting to get in this world of, all right, I have a goal. And now my goal is to get better at said workout. Now, what do I need to do? How do I deconstruct my activity in order to do that? Okay, so then let's go on the other side toward sports performance and specificity. This is where Burn sits. Now, Burn requires our trainers to be NCCA accredited. So we are CPTs. Most of our trainers are in like a NASM or an ACE or 4 years exercise science, plus a Burn University certification. So there's high level of credentials that you need to be to get on the mic at Burn Bootcamp. And the reason is because it's personal training in a group setting. And if we aren't having a individualized look and focus and attention at every member, then we're moving backward on the spectrum. So focus meetings allow us to sit down one-on-one, get those goals that are hyper specific to you, and then we can execute against those in a group setting. Now, the goal with Burn is to not just be on like the closest to a hyper personalization. It's to keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. We're never going to get there. We're never going to get there because we just interviewed Connor Fields, who is the first USA gold medalist in BMX ever. He was right here in the studio. This episode's coming out soon. For his entire life, the only thing that he focused on, Dylan is probably used to this, the only thing he's focused on is how fast can I push the pedal one time? Because that pedal off the rip on if you've seen BMX, it's 3, 2, 1, go, and they go downhill, and every one of them has that stomp of the pedal. All he's doing for a decade is just trying to stomp the pedal harder, right? So that is, and then he'll have a period of 6 months, like Bryce was talking about in the off season, where he's working toward measuring that pedal stomp and then increasing more energy with each pedal stomp. And that is so highly specialized. We're never going to get there because we don't serve that hyper market. We're going to get to the lifestyle athlete who can get as specialized and specific as possible. And then we're going to take you through group periodization. Okay, group periodization. And so we had to invent some of these things because they hadn't always lived there. So that's my spectrum of like everyday activity versus sports hyper specific performance. And, as pitchers, like we were talking about, I did a lot of internal, external band work with my elbow to increase the integrity of my muscles around the ligaments, like the ulnar collateral ligament or UCL. A lot of pitchers will tear that. We call it Tommy John. We really try to strengthen and lengthen our forearm muscles and our tricep muscles and our bicep muscles around the UCL so that there's less stress on the tendon and more of the attention is absorbed into the muscle. So, I mean, that's just quickly my take on what we're dealing with here. And so, I guess the punchline and the practicality of all this to land the plane from my perspective is Burn Nation. Like, get in focus meetings because this is the vehicle in which you set that goal. And then you and your trainer, you're on the same page. And the more the more clear you are about the target you're trying to hit, the higher probability you're going to actually hit the target.
Can I just ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the group that is so hyper specialized that needs what we're talking about as far as fitness training, that's a small percentage, correct? I mean, when Do you feel like what percent of the world do you feel like needs that type of specialization that Dylan talked about, that I talked about, that you and I went through that very unique part of our life where we literally were focusing on throwing a ball as hard as we can and knowing where it's going, and that's it? What percent of America is that their need?
I would say a very small percentage,
1%.
but that doesn't
Less.
eliminate, in my opinion, to answer your question, just because you're not in a sport as a professional athlete does not eliminate the goal orientation towards something hyper specific.
Yeah.
So people want to run better times all the time. We want to do better strength and conditioning assessment. We want to have over a Flex Your Fitness challenge. We want to get X amount percentage stronger, right? So we can have these goals. I think the only difference is we're not isolating it into necessarily like a singular movement. Like the hyper personalization, hyper specificity is, I think, the hyper is a very important word, because pressing a pedal or pulling water, or if it comes to your Gumby arms, like Bryce has the most flexible person I've ever met. I watched this guy throw a ball 97 miles an hour and it looked like his arm was just like
Can you touch your toes?
bent in
Bryce?
half.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very flexible. And so
It did bend in half. That's
so the answer is
one too many times.
the small percentage of people, but I encourage everyone to get more specific with the goals that they're trying to set via focus meetings. Let your trainer know, let your best friend know, have some accountability around it. And hey, like the more acutely we can identify our goals, the more likely we are to hit them.
That's what
I think-
that's what I relate to now, and that's why I asked that question: is life after going through those programs? I want to hit a golf ball far. I want to feel good when I'm down and straight. Well, I want to feel good
With
when I'm
no
done
anger
with it. Yeah,
afterwards.
Yes.
So we
that's
gotta-
a completely different
We
discipline.
got to pull this into emotions.
I don't
okay?
know if the trainers are going to get me where I need. Well, maybe. But I also want to be able to walk around Washington, D.C. for 8 straight hours with my family and not have my back feel bad. And I want to think clearly, right? And so it's gone from very hyper specific, do one thing, to being still specific. Here's the things that I want out of this. But it's a different program, right?
Goals,
and I'm,
goals change.
man, if I just go to
Train
camp
for
and I do
life.
focus meetings, I can do all those things.
What's our goals right now, Morgan?
Well, I
Go- yeah, you can
say
do your
one
thing.
thing
Do your
about just I want to also like bring this back to the everyday listener or the everyday, user of fitness that aren't in a sport or haven't been in a sport. I think we can take a lot of inspiration from it. So Dylan touched on it a little bit, and I know we're going to talk about nutrition later in this segment as it relates to sports nutrition versus just any regular nutrition. But I remember interviewing Kathleen Baker, who was an Olympian, and she didn't talk about just the training of it. Granted, that is very grueling. She talked about the nutrition about it, the flexibility you needed to have, the rest that you needed to have. And then they even had therapists like that they would go see regularly. So if you think about it that way, it's taking care of your entire mind and body and not just the specific fitness component of it. And we need to take inspiration from that just for us too, because you can't just work out and think you're going to be successful or hit your goals. You can't just sleep good. You can't just be flexible. It's a combination of everything and getting better at everything. So for me, it's just, just because we're not in that 1% that needs the fitness specific exercises or workouts, we can still train, like we've all just said, for your life, for getting a better time in a marathon, for being active with your kids, for carrying every single grocery bag in the house without having 2 trips. Who likes to do that?
Except
Oh,
they,
yeah.
have
Anyone?
they have the paper
I take it as a
bags now, and I
challenge.
have
One
to.
Come
trip,
on,
no
one
matter
trip.
what it looks like.
And your
Right?
fingers are just
Yeah.
numb by the time you get inside, but you're
Yeah,
not
the
going to set
end of
those
your
bags
finger is
down.
white, and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
I got this.
I'd rather lose one than make a second trip.
Well,
It's-
they give us the paper bags now when we do the pickup, and so I
Oh,
can't. I'm
yeah.
gonna rip a handle if I
That's
try to
true.
carry too many.
That's
so.
very frustrating.
Yeah.
Whole Foods did that to me the other week, and I was like, this is not efficient.
Yeah, that's
I've
why we
made-
make you put a med ball in your lap and walk it across the
That's
floor.
right. So, anyways, I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the non-athletes out there, like me.
You're an athlete.
All
Going
right,
to go
well.
lower half though. All right, so